Right, greetings, hello. Welcome. This is our farewell interview, really. It's Thomas here, my weekly fasting Sunday, and Sara, who's been visiting the museum here for, gosh, about a month now, isn't it?
More. Almost 2 months. Months and a half.
Really? Blimey. Yeah. Well, it's flown past, I think. You've been great company, and we've done a lot of work together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you too.
And I'm sure all the other people that support the peace work I'm doing in the Institute here, who've either been before or want to come, will be glad you've been here for the last bit of summer. We've just had the equinox, haven't we? Autumn's coming.
Right.
And it's getting cooler. So I've got a few questions for you. You've got a few for me. This is our farewell discussion, really. And then after that, there's going to be just me each week, so this is more fun. And I'm carrying on with these weekly talks because it's a way of sharing the news, and it's for me it's a political protest against the insanity of the world and war. And I was explaining to you that I set up this Centre for Peace Policy Research in Scotland when civil war was breaking out in Syria, and you were there at the time. I didn't know you then. And I wrote a book called Why We Need a Peace Policy for Syria. And I seem to be like one of the few voices. No one in the British establishment intellectually even has thought of a peace policy. They have foreign policy, military policy, security policy, even intelligence policy, economic policy, every policy under the sun except peace. And I think it's the most important because without it, the world falls apart,
Apparently, yes.
Yeah.
After the crisis in Syria, also all the countries around also badly affected. Lebanon, Jordan as well.
And Turkey's got huge refugees.
Yes, Turkey, right.
Yeah, so when unpeace happens, it spreads,
Yes, it's apparently like the problem, the crisis in Syria. It's not only for Syrian as well.
Yeah, no, and it spread to Europe. Lots of people came here, and that impacted on, I think, even Brexit. I don't think the Brexit vote would have happened if that fear of, we're being swamped by refugees hadn't been.
Right.
It was played all over the media in Scotland and Britain, warning, oh my God, they're coming, millions. And of course then the British voted for Brexit, like, keep them out.
Yes.
So the lack of a peace policy, lack of peace thinking in Britain's intellectual elite policy circles, which I was moving in, that's my home. I did my meetings in Parliament and stuff. But I've been completely ignored. The system has totally ignored it's almost prophetic, my role.
Wow.
And they completely ignore me. So then what happens? Well, Syria happens, complete meltdown. And then, refugee flux and Brexit. So anyway, the good news is you made it out. You're a refugee, bless you. And that's the one good thing I'd say about the Civil War. You came to stay with us in Europe.
Yes, I was before in Italy finishing my master. Then I joined my family because also apparently they couldn't stay in the country. It was hard to stay there and dangerous as well. In
Syria?
Yes, at that time, yes. So the most needed to escape the country in that time. Yes.
And your city, Homs, tell me about your city. It's an old city, isn't it?
We have, yes, and all the cities actually in Syria, like Damascus is one of the oldest inhabited capital in the world. And Aleppo as well, both are in UNESCO. Homs, the old city of Homs, not really, but it's sad that it's totally destroyed during the war. And
the old city?
Yes, the old city, yes. And
but it was from early times, wasn't it? I mean, it was pre-Christian, wasn't there a city there?
Yeah, sure, yeah. It was since the Aram,
ancient Aramaic times.
Yeah.
Was it called Himis or Hims?
Emesa, that's what I remember. Emesa. And we worshipped the god of the black stone. Yes, so my city is known as the city with the basilic black stone.
So the buildings are made of black stone?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in Clermont-Ferrand in France, I don't know if you've been there.
Right.
The cathedral is made of black
Yeah,
stone.
I want to say something, mention something about my city because it's quite funny and it's historical story.
Yeah.
Saying that, like we used to hear that Homs, the city of peace, like or the mother of the peace, or the home of the peace, like Dar es Salaam, and we didn't know why. Later on, I was informed this. From friends that saying Homs before didn't have terrible wars during the history, no, and it happened like when Holako come to invade the country, they started from Aleppo and Damascus is where they were totally destroyed, and Baghdad.
The Mongol, this is Hulagu Khan,
Yes,
the
yeah,
Mongol
yeah.
leader, yeah.
And
about
Baghdad, yeah, all the area was like now, I guess, that full of wars, full of conflicts. So my city survived because the people were very smart in a special way. Like they known, like we are known in my country as the crazy people and funny. And so when the people know that the army coming from north, from Aleppo,
yeah,
they started to, they say we have to survive, and then they came into an idea to dress as a crazy and riding the donkeys and the animals in
backward.
yes, an opposite, and so they made the city as it's really in a wedding, in celebration, in a festival, carnival, I don't know. And then I don't know what they call this guy when he comes with the army to say we want to.
The Mongol leader. Yeah.
Yeah. So they came and they sent us. It was known, I think, in that days that they sent a correspondent.
An ambassador ahead.
Yeah.
Emissary.
To check out how is going on, what's going on in this city, if they have an army or prepared to fight, whatever. And then this center looked and said saw that it's a crazy place. People just having fun, and they do crazy things, and they like spread. They spread the rumors like this city has a very bad quality of air or quality of soil. Or water, and people get mad. So it's now my city, like it's the city of crazy people.
And so the Mongols didn't invade.
They said
they
no,
didn't attack.
We don't want to attack the city, and then they turn. But sad during the Syrian crisis, Homs was the first city that already paid a high tax in the beginning, like the first one destroyed.
Right.
Yes.
Well, that's a very interesting story, and it reminds me of something around 2003, the invasion of Iraq by the people that couldn't think of a peace policy. They could only think of a conquering policy, and attacked Saddam Hussein in Iraq, which had nothing to do with 9/11, completely no justification in law. But I always thought, and I wrote letters, I tried to propose this, I always thought Saddam Hussein should have gone to the UN in New York and just said, look, these crazy people are trying to attack my country, claiming I've got weapons of mass destruction. I haven't, you've sent teams in, you can't find them. I'm not leaving New York, I'm not leaving this building in the Security Council till you tell these people to stand down their troops. If I'd have been Saddam Hussein, that's what I would have done. Mm-hmm. I don't know why he didn't. I suppose he was too arrogant, but it might have worked. Because obviously there's no way they could have defeated the Americans' forces. And the second strategy I thought of, if that failed, if the UN said, sorry, you're off, go away, I would have ordered my troops to do what the Homs people did. Mm-hmm. I would have said in Baghdad, I would have got them all out on tables in the town square, having coffee, smoking their, their, whatever they smoke, their chillums and things, and just invite the American troops when they turn up in their tanks, say, come and have a coffee. What's your problem? Like being crazy Sufi types. And because Baghdad is such an ancient, amazing, beautiful city. And I wonder what the Americans would have done if they'd have offered non-violent resistance. Like using Gandhi's technique of non-violence. Just like sit down and we'll talk about this. Why do you want to invade my country? But of course, Saddam Hussein wasn't intelligent in non-violence. He didn't think of that. But I love that story about Homs. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay. My first question for you is just a sort of general one. Have you enjoyed your time here?
Yes, definitely. Like almost 2 months, and the time passed by very fast. Yes, I really loved Betet,
The little village here.
the little French village, and the first day I arrived here, I said, "Oh my God, what a kind of village this! It didn't seem that it's a beautiful place." But because the museum also located in a very good place, like you can be just in one moment walking near a lake, 2 lakes, a like forest around, animals around, and silent, which is really nice. And like day after day, I learned how to really love it. But that also thanks to your program here, because you will have here plenty of time, and you will it's kind of a spiritual retreat. You will have the space to stay with yourself more, have the real connection with the nature. Books everywhere. Every day we have a prayer, the praying time and the meditation. It's wonderful. I mean, I really recommend this place to everyone who lives in Europe or who can have the access to come here. It's a very good place to.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
Yes,
well,
to
that's
stay.
great. So have you got a question for me? What do you want to ask me?
Oh yes, I mean that question. The museum was already set in Scotland before, and then it moves to. I mean, you live in France here since 5 years.
Yes.
So. And why France? Why did you choose France to come?
Okay. So yes, I was I was 7 years in Scotland actually. And I loved it. I was in a big castle. The trouble was the castle was a bit leaky and it was raining inside. It was romantic, but it was haunted actually. I told you some stories about it. It was a typical haunted Scottish castle. And in one of the famous James Bond movies, there's a sequence where he goes with M and rescues her from a Scottish castle, which was leaking inside, buckets everywhere to catch the drips, which was... It's how it was in Scotland, right? I mean, whenever it was raining, it would drip, and it rained all the time. I think I've told you that in Scotland, I counted up, there were only 3 days a year when it didn't rain. In that, I think I didn't know, I was in the most rainy part of Scotland. It's called Western Argyll. And I got used to it. In fact, I thought of a great book, like 100 Types of Rain. Because there's books you can get on cloud watching or wave watching, different names for different types of waves.
Wow.
I thought there's at least 100 types of rain. In Scotland there was the rain that comes in vertically, horizontally, it's horizontal rain. Because the winds were so fast, they'd often go at about 100 miles an hour. It would blow the water rain into the castle's walls, like horizontally, like at 100 miles an hour. And of course it would seep in. It would get through the cracks in the rock. So I have to say, yeah, that was... so I decided I'd had enough, to be honest, of that weather. I love the Scottish people. And I learned to understand their independence struggle. I never had before. I'd lived in a sort of bubble of... Well, British is English, isn't it? I mean, we all speak English. I mean, why can't we all love each other? I never realised that actually the Scots culture is not only very different, but has a history of pain and conquest by the people controlled by Westminster, the English government, largely. And most people who never go and live in Scotland don't realise this. But I did in the end. It took me 7 years to get there. So I really am grateful to my Scottish friends who taught me, the hard way about the geopolitics of the British Empire's origins. And one of my colleagues in Scotland told me, look, the first people the English conquered were the Scots and the Irish and the Welsh. So anyway, I learned a lot. But then I decided it was time to leave. and I was looking for somewhere else to move to. And I found this place in the absolute geographical centre of France. It's in 800 miles south of where I was, so it's much, much warmer. We have the weather at the moment is compared to Scotland, it's to die for. And this lasts till the end of October. We have days like summer days, right till the end of October.
Yeah, September.
It can be warm,
Right.
hot even. And we have enough rain, but not too much. It rains like in a rational kind of every 4th, 5th, 6th day. We can go, in August we can go for 2 weeks without rain. But then we get it back. So I saw it on the map. A friend of mine found me this place, which was a hotel before I came here. And he said, I think this is big enough for you, Thomas, because I needed somewhere really big and affordable and, that didn't rain inside. So it was to die for, and I turned it from being a hotel, although it's still a hotel, people can come and stay here, there's loads of rooms and bedrooms, but now all the bedrooms have books in. And they're all dedicated to the 9 Muses, so each bedroom is a different muse.
It's hard to get sleep then, you have all these interesting books. Yeah.
And you've been in one of the main rooms, which is Thalia, isn't it?
Right.
Have you enjoyed that, Muse?
Yes. Yes, I did. In the last floor.
She stands for literature and poetry and all that. And you've been sharing with me some of the Arab poets, haven't you?
Well, I'm not. I can't be an expert with this, but I don't remember which.
But you love Arabic poetry. You've been saying how important it is.
Yeah. Now recently, I start to like the. I mean, that's one of the things you. When you grow up, maybe you got into really the cultures and because I lived in Italy 3 years and then in Germany for almost 4 years. Travel around the countries around, or meeting people from different cultures, you will appreciate this, and the languages as well. When you learn any new language, it's
it's a window to it, isn't it?
Right. You're gonna come back to your source. If you don't master your own, then you cannot or appreciate what you have. You can't get into the new language.
Yeah, and just to finish your question about why France, I mean, you see, I could have gone to Spain or Italy or whatever, Germany, but because I speak French, my mother was a French teacher, she brought us up as a family to think of ourselves as like Europeans who loved France, and we used to come on holiday to France every year when I was growing up as a little boy, and I would practice my French, and I stayed in Paris with a family that every Easter for about 5 years. And I grew to love France because I remember as a boy, coming here and speaking French and just seeing how everything is similar but different. The cars are similar but different. Everything's similar but different. And the French have a great style. They have a panache about them. They have the castles. To die for in France, the art. Something I love about France is it's not weird to be an artist here or a poet. If I'm walking around the streets and somebody says, "What do you do?" I say, "I'm a poet." They just say, "Oh, another one." It's not weird at all. Here in La Creuse, virtually every other person's some kind of an artist.
Right.
And they all come here from Paris because it's cheap to live here. It's like rural. Paris is really expensive, obviously, compared to here. So a lot of the artists end up coming and settling in La Creuse and doing their art. I've got neighbours here in the village that are full-time painters. And it doesn't matter if they don't sell it and they're not famous. They do it because they have a passion for beauty and for art, and that's a tradition that I've come to respect. And I suppose I'm the same. I'm a poet, I'm a philosopher, I'm a historian. To me it's an art form, And the other thing I would say about France is that coming here and living here for 5 years, I have learned a lot more. I knew quite a lot already about its culture and literature and history, because Mum made me read books about it all, and I knew about Rimbaud and all the great poets of France. I slightly identified with them when I started my life as a poet. I wanted to be like Rambo or whatever. But now I know an awful lot more. I've made a concerted effort to read and study French literature and history. I've visited different chateaux and castles and cities, and I've got guidebooks, and I've gone into it thoroughly. You know, I discovered Leonardo da Vinci's buried up the road.
Yes.
And I didn't know that before I came here.
Wow.
So I went to his grave and I communed with it, and you know, and I love the Renaissance culture of France. And the thing about French life that I like is it is a highly intellectual culture.
Right.
Even guys in the street you meet in the post office, they've all got a view on world affairs. It's not weird to be an intellectual in France. In fact, it's kind of expected. And that's where the French Revolution came from. It was the intellectuals that rebelled against the ancien regime of corruption and like, well, whatever the king says, we do that, and if you complain, we torture you to death. That way of thinking is not acceptable in France. We're a democratic republic. You know, everyone is equal by law, and we all therefore have rights to our views. And I really admire that about the French. I mean, it's amazing. And I think it's the duty of the intellectuals to keep that going. And so my peace work that I brought here from Scotland fits really well here, I think. Whereas in England, I always felt like that the English, especially the English establishment, just didn't get the point of peace. And I've realised with the horrors of Brexit and like sending, I mean, Boris Johnson and the Tory party represent the antithesis of what I stand for. They seem to think that militarism is the answer to everything. Dropping bombs, building bigger tanks, guns, aircraft carriers and more nuclear weapons. You know, it's a nonsense. And I mean, now they're selling, so they're parading Britain as a great military superpower again. Well, I think this is all fantasy. It's like, I think they're literally gone crazy. Because I don't think militarism will ever bring peace to this planet. It will cause myriad more Syrian civil war type things.
Yes, we are paying tax now.
You're paying the tax.
Also the foreign interfere in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned like during the old days when people go with normal armies. I mean, I lived in a war. I have 3 years experience in the war, and in that time I said, oh my God, I wish that the people fight in the old traditional way.
Like with swords, yeah.
Yes, because you can just live your life and suddenly, or you thought that I escaped the hot zone in the war, and suddenly by mistake, or we don't know, we just have shells on our safe place supposed to be, and it's an easy way to kill people. Just
it's cheating, I think. You know, I think I agree entirely. It's cheating, dropping bombs from the air or firing cannon or now drone warfare.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I don't agree with violence at all. But if you're going to have to fight a war, then let's go back to swords and knights in armour.
Yes, you know. I
this
wish,
is an honest struggle.
Yes, I wish the days to come back because it's still einfacher, like it's easier to digest from the voices of the bombing or the...
Yeah, and you know what, like... And also it's contained, the battlefield. It's horrible for a few hours, but at least it doesn't overspill. Whereas these wars, they desecrate and destroy whole cities. And I mean, yes, so I've learned a lot from you about the horrors of your experience in the war. And it's ironic there I was in the castle in Scotland trying to stop it all. But unfortunately my voice is just not listened to in Britain. Right, so now I've got another question for you, okay? So you've been doing, one of the projects we've been working on together is a tarot set.
Right, yes.
And you turned up as a brilliant artist. This was totally unexpected.
Yes, I didn't expect this myself as well.
So tell us about the tarot and what you've been doing and show us a few examples.
Yes, so today was I did two about the Saturn and his wife Ops. They are Roman gods and goddess. And this one from Africa, Da. So for me, I wasn't into ancient cultures and the god and goddess and this old. Let's say they were the philosophical interaction, human and what's the word in universe.
Mm.
So I really learned. I have not this access, but through designing this, I could learn about this, and I enjoyed. Actually, it was also informative for me.
Yeah.
And yes,
You've done a great job. Yeah. So thank you again.
Yeah.
And you've very nearly finished the whole deck, which is
Almost.
absolutely a miracle.
Right.
I've been waiting for an artist to turn up, you know, because I mean I can do art, but it takes me ages, and it's not something I specialised in.
Yes. Yeah. I liked also this one. It's from the
Egyptian.
The Egypt. And
Yeah.
we sometimes Thomas has some ideas to make it.
Let me show them this one if you can get a close up. It's a shame, but this is, well, I call him Ptah. What do you pronounce it as?
Bitah. Sorry, bitah.
So you have in Arabic this long H sound, don't you? Ptah.
Bitah. I don't know if it's
Which
Arabic. Maybe it's Pharaonic. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't really do that. Ptah.
Bitah.
But I'm sure that's how the Egyptians called him.
Yeah.
Ptah. And he is a very important god. He's the creator of the world. And he creates through speech. He's at the root of the Hermetic tradition to some extent. And he was an amazing god. He was also the architect of the universe and the master builder. So Freemasons, I've studied the history of Freemasonry a lot, and they actually are descendants of the priests of Ptah, among other things. Napoleon knew this. Napoleon, the French, he was an intellectual general, which is rare. And he therefore wanted to go to Egypt and discover everything, and found the Rosetta Stone. I mean, and French Freemasonry was very important, and still is. And it really is Ptah worship.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why they wear these little aprons, which you drew. And if you go to the Grand Orient in Paris, the Freemasonic Lodge, or in London, the great museum I've been to, they have all the hundreds of these little aprons,
Right.
every serving Freemason. And in Syria too, the Grand Lodge in Damascus was always very important. It was founded from Egypt, inspired probably by Napoleon's foundation of Masonic lodges in Egypt. Then the British came, and then it spread to Damascus and Lebanon. And I have books on the history of Arabic Freemasonry. And then there's even a lodge in Palestine, right? Which won't it or will it recognise the Israeli lodges? I mean, there's a war going on between all the Masonic bodies as well.
Yes, it's to say this.
It's really interesting.
I told you before. It's also if you go to the Arabic media, you will say Masonic. Oh, that's too much mystery and fears for the public people. But it's
yeah, they don't really like it. It has a bad name.
Right, I think because of the Zionist and yes.
Well, because of poor education, I would say. I mean, it's a long story, but Hitler didn't like Freemasons either. The fascist movement and the Nazi movement in Europe hated them. But that was because they were afraid of them and didn't understand them. They never knew it was about ancient Egypt. They made the mistake of thinking it was some kind of Jewish conspiracy. Hitler never did his degrees, he never studied properly. And it became, so it was associated with anti-Semitism. To be anti-Masonic, every anti-Semite was kind of also anti-Masonic. But both of them are errors, in my opinion. So when the Nazi invaded Paris, the army went immediately to get the archives of the Grand Lodge of Paris. And they arrested Freemasons and killed them all over France and over Czechoslovakia. Any territory they conquered. Had they conquered Britain, they would have arrested and killed all the Freemasons. Now, I don't agree with that. You know, the Freemasons are really interesting. They have their own history and their rights. They've been going since different theories as to when they arose, but possibly even influenced by crusading knights who went to Syria, met Sufis, met proto-Alawite types, ended up discussing the mysteries and realising that they had more in common than sort of fanatical, simpler religious people who didn't understand the mysteries. So it created possibly a sort of esoteric society for sharing secrets, which they shared largely through symbols. geometry. So the Masonic thing, you know, the square and compass is a symbol. I mean, that's one of the theories about the origin of Freemasonry, which I think is partly true. I'm sure that during the Crusades, the people that were sick of this got together after and said, "This is ridiculous. What can we do?" You know. Anyway, that's Ptah.
Yeah, I like this also idea, like from Iraq.
This is Bel. Right?
No, Nebo.
Oh, this is Nebu, right? Oh, Nebu.
We did it a bit. Modern.
He's fun. He is the god of learning and writing, and of course is a scholar. So he's the god of scholars. And what's really interesting about this tarot deck is that it's the first ever tarot deck for male deities. You can buy lots of goddess tarots, very common. You know, every New Age shop in Glastonbury or California has goddess tarots, but there's never been a god's tarot.
Oh yes.
And I thought it'd be fun, because I'm a bloke, I thought I would like rebalance that. Because men are important too, and there are gods. So let's have goddesses and gods, you know. So this is a male deities tarot deck. And I'm going to write the text after you've gone, and I'll publish it, and it'll be available with your amazing artwork.
Wow. Yes.
So, and you are an artist, aren't you? You've had, like, you've done quite a lot of work. You specialise in portraits, do you?
With portraits.
Yeah.
I mean, that was as a hobby. I wanted to study fine art, but then I switched into another college, the tourism, because it was new and I wanted to travel.
So you were drawing stuff from an early age?
15, I think. I mean, it seems like I like to draw, but I would say I'm
self-taught.
Self-taught, yes, yeah. And during the corona, I could improve my skill much better.
Yeah.
Because I had more time. And I think this... during the bad times, like corona or war, whatever, for me I find it's quite a positive experience, even though it was quite challenging. But you will have more time for yourself, and you can...
It's like a meditation, I suppose.
Yes, somehow. And I mean, arts... everyone can do. It's not about also if you do good art, good drawing, good portrait or not. It's just giving time to yourself, doing something you like, whatever it is, sharing with another. It's a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an artist with words, so I tend not to. But I wish there were more hours in the day. I think if I was God, I'd say a 36-hour day. And then we'd all have more time for art and stuff.
Yes, I think the art is good. Also, it helps you to escape from thoughts, or it's like the sport. I mean, you can also do something just to escape the overthinking and something, and just
you get into the visual. And
yes, go to the spiritual world as music. As
I mean, I used to work as a painter and decorator. It's one of the things I've done in my life. Yeah, and I found that painting a door. You know, I did it in my late teens with a friend. We had a little business in Brighton.
Right.
And we'd have to paint a flat or something in a day, and it's hard physical work.
Yes.
You have to slap the paint on. But I found it it had an interesting effect on the mind, because you have to just like get in the zone.
You learn a discipline, I think. It's also...
Yeah. And it's not as skilled, obviously, as what you do, but it's the same kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay, have you got another question for me?
Right, I want to say here that during my stay here, I learned many things. I mean, I can't say them now, but I've all the time taken notes about also the mathematics. I mean, I during every day we have discussions. We have during the prayer time reading historical events and